is surrounded or by countries inimical to USA. But USA would much like to push NATO into Ukraine and see to it that they get into Russia. So it's after all, USA has to reconcile that it is no longer a unipolar world; it's a multipolar world, and much goes if there's some kind of a bit of a diplomacy involved. You may declare Maduro as a drug mafia, but it isn't always like that. They are eyeing that 18% of oil. Right? The Chinese use and consume something like 16 million barrels per day. Americans consume 20 million barrels per day. India is consuming only about 5 million barrels per day. What have the Chinese done? Tied up for about $40 billion with who? With the Iranians for oil. Similar amount with Russians for gas. With similar thing, interest in Venezuela. You see what they've done in Panama Canal, the Chinese. So obviously the Americans are concerned.
There's a bit of a breaking news, sir. General Kulkarni, there's a bit of a breaking news. The US Delta Forces, officially the first forces operational detachment, they captured Maduro. US Delta Forces, officially the first forces, captured Maduro. Is the US Army's highly secretive Tier 1 Special Mission Unit formed by Counterterrorism, Hostage Rescue and Direct Action Operations against Joint Special Operations Command. Modeled after the British SAS, it recruits from elite army units like Green Berets, Rangers. It focuses on raids, surgical response to critical threats too sensitive for conventional forces operating under names like Combat Application Group and Task Force Green. So the US Delta Force, after the Navy SEALs, Maduro was captured by Delta Force, US Delta Force, Detachment 1, SFOD. General Kulkarni, please shed some light on these operations and these, the special command with the, number of special commands which the Americans have, modeled after the British SAS. General Kulkarni.
Yes, definitely. Kadi, look at it. The absolute special forces, elite forces of America, all of that they must have been doing. None of it is possible without the support on the ground, because all of them have been landed from the air. And the very fact that they could capture the palace, they could capture Maduro, they could capture his wife, they knew exactly where it was. I'm sure there must have been bunkers made down to have taken him, they knew where it was. So Americans have adequate intelligence and also their sources inside Venezuela to be able to operate at this point of time. The fact that they had totally surrounded Venezuela for a long time, they did not hesitate capturing tankers of all other countries, including that of China, flying a Panama flag, is indicative that yes, Trump was serious. More than Trump, the deep state in America can understand that now if Americans allow Chinese or anybody for that matter in the backwaters where they seem to be keen, you see Trump's interest in wanting to buy Arctic. Why does he want to buy Denmark? Why does he want to buy Arctic? They've seen for that reason that there are countries which will be interested in getting it around them. And hence, it is oil. Energy is the most important thing. The Chinese, as I said, look at the consumption, 16 million barrels per day. How much can they take from Russia at this point of time? They've also tied up with Iran. They're wanting those 18% of the world's reserve, which are in Venezuela. Saudi Arabia has much less reserve than what it is in Venezuela. So there is a lot of interest that the Americans have. Obviously, half of the Venezuelans have already left. So many 3 million are in Colombia, though Colombia does not recognize Maduro. So there's a very complex situation, and Americans will have their way. There is no denying the fact, much that we would not like it the way the Americans are doing. It is wrong to have done that way. But then America is looking at their interest, and so now we know if anybody is wanting to say that the Russians must not see their interest, and the Americans must only be able to see their interest, and that the Chinese feel, well, their interests are being compromised if people enter the South China Sea or get anywhere close to Taiwan. So it's all it's a catch-22 situation for everybody.
But General, this is General, sorry, there's another breaking news that is coming in. You are saying it's a catch-22 situation. The Colombians want sort of a special meet in the United Security Council. But what Americans have done is that they have not let the boots be on the ground. The boots were on the ground and the boots are now out of the ground. So is it also because of the fact that the hard lessons the Americans have learned in Afghanistan, Iraq and Vietnam that, when you put American boots on the ground, ultimately America has lost wherever it has tried to capture the territory, sir. Whether it's Afghanistan, whether it's Iraq or whether it is Vietnam. This time around in Venezuela when the action is being done, they have just captured the person and they have gone away. So what's your, sir, one, is it different from what the Americans have been doing? And the secondly, sir, is there a lesson for the world what the Americans have done, sir? The raw demonstration of Monroe Doctrine.
Yeah, definitely, Kartikeya, what you're saying is absolutely right. Americans wouldn't want boots on ground in Venezuela because the Venezuelans, the ones who are there in the country, the ones who have not yet left the country, were with Maduro in a large number, and they were all ready to fight it out. The Americans would want to fight with the Venezuelans. There I was at Maduro. They have learned their hard lessons in Vietnam. They've learned their lesson in Iraq. They've learned their lesson in Afghanistan. And wherever the Americans intervene, the Americans have suffered losses. And therefore, this was a absolutely clean operation in which they used their Delta Force, picked up Maduro, his wife, and that is what they've been saying. Some presidents are saying so for a long, long time that Maduro must be given, he must leave the country. All they were very keen to depose him, but that was not possible. It's not been possible for the last 25 years, ever since Hugo and relationship with America, his handing over to Maduro and their relationship with America. So it's been a very difficult time even for America, but Americans should, I would still recommend, Americans should always be showing the cowboy style of wanting to do things, in a manner in which it conveys wrong lessons, does not convey right. You can't always be saying might is right, I can do whatever I want to, and then let not other countries, every country has its own identity, and we must respect their feelings, we must respect their aspirations. That is what the UN was meant for. But UN has become defunct totally. Colombia, despite not having relations, is much willing to go to UN, is willing to go against Americans, because Colombia doesn't see eye to eye with America, even though they have not recognized Venezuela and Maduro. So there is so much happening in that Latin American state. And the relationship of Mexico, on based on that, the wall that is coming up between America can become great, making America great again, maybe the motto. Good, no problem. Every country must become great, but not at the cost of others. Then that greatness may not last, and a civil war starts, a whole lot of insurgency starts, a whole lot of terrorism starts. All of this starts, then it's very, very difficult then to control it. Americans have the might to do it. But I still would say Americans, and that may be one of the reasons why Americans don't want to have their boots on ground, fight out the Venezuelans. They did what they wanted to do, and knowing fully well that their own opposition leader, a Nobel Prize winner, is already there in Venezuela. That lady can always take over the country whenever, because it's again, if in Syria they can have an Al-Qaeda, al-Shara back again as the president of Syria. Anything can happen, but we have to be a lesson learned. We have to be strong enough to have adequate deterrence. But small countries can't have any deterrence with a country as strong in America. So the Chinese are looking at it, and I'm sure the Chinese understand.
So Chinese delegation was in Caracas, sir. So Chinese delegation was in Caracas when this attack has happened. There is a photograph which the BRICS Twitter handle tweeted that we don't know where the Chinese delegation is. So I think they are also, I think they are they have sent a message to the China also that they take their backyard very seriously, because China has been making presence in Africa, UAE, Riyadh, and South America very, very prominently, if I may use the word, in terms of trade, oil, in terms of manufacturing. So, for Americans to do that, but the Chinese, no courtesy shown, no courtesy shown there.
Kartikeya, if you remember, when our own foreign minister then, Mr. Bajpai, was in China, and what did the Chinese do? Attack Vietnam. If the Chinese did that to us, they know the Americans are doing that now to the Chinese, but the delegation will be there, they will do what they want to do. So all these kind of things backfire, and hence it is very important that diplomacy must prevail. It's not a world that might is right. It's a world where things must move in a little more, the rule of law must prevail. If one doesn't like a particular person, for whatever the reason it may be, there are various means of doing it. And Venezuela, despite so much of oil, much more than Saudi Arabia, you see the standard of living in Venezuela. You see the kind of people who have left Venezuela, 3 million in Colombia. People had migrated from Venezuela to Colombia, 3 million. How many of them have come to America? Then, despite that, I think Venezuela had very little option, but then they decided to stand up to America. And the Americans have also conveyed it in no uncertain terms that anybody who decides to stand up to them, they will not hesitate to use force. And they've used that. It's not easy. It's almost like, would use a very strong word, but it's something you can't just go to somebody else's country, pick up their president, their wife, and just they go away thinking that they don't see eye to eye and they don't seem to listen to what the Americans want them to listen to.
Absolutely.
It's wrong.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, General Kulkarni. Thank you. We are really running short of time. Thank you for joining us. It's a big breaking, Deepak. The big breaking in the sense that, Americans have captured Maduro. The President of the United States of America, Donald Trump, is going to hold a press conference tonight, right into your bulletin at prime time. And I don't know what is he going to say. I'm surprised that there's been no word as to where is he being kept. Is he on the United States nuclear aircraft carrier? Is he in some insider submarine? Or have they taken him to Florida, like, to a high-profile prison where El Chapo was able to break out. El Chapo, has been kept, because Maduro is not a drug lord. But I would say that this is unprecedented that a sitting head of a state with his entire family from the presidential quarter has been lifted out from a very defended place and flown out by the Delta Force, and a Delta Force is not operating with 100 people. It's a short squad, it's a small squad, 30, 25 people. So, I think, we'll have another Argo here or another story, which helicopters were used, which weapons were used, how did they, jam the GPS, how did they go to the presidential quarter, who was defending the president, how much firepower was used. I think that will be one Hollywood film, I'm telling you. This operation has big ramification globally. Apart from the fact that, they have done something which is completely unexpected, but it has deep ramification for international politics, rule-based order, Deepak.
That's right, Karthikeya. And now that, Venezuelan defense minister is also saying that we will not negotiate, we will ultimately prevail. What does he, what is he trying to say? Can he really stand up to Donald Trump?
I don't think, this is rhetoric. This is rhetoric. This is nothing. This is just rhetoric. So I don't think Americans are interested in taking over Venezuela. They're affecting a regime change. In fact, what Americans have done is they have effected a regime change. This is nothing but a complete regime change affected by United States of America. You have taken away the president. You have broken the linchpin of the coalition which Maduro was ruling. Now there will be complete clamor for who's going to replace Maduro. Someone who replaces Maduro, Americans are going to talk to them. Either he genuflects in front of them, or he will be, the same fate will be reserved for them. So, Venezuela is in for the tough time.
That's right, and US has time and again said that, Maduro has been an illegitimate president, although he lost. The official figure said that the opposition candidate won by landslide.
That way action can be taken against Putin also. That way action can be taken against Ayatollah Khamenei also. That way action can be taken against so many despots. Why isn't America attacking Myanmar if it is for democracy? Why isn't America attack Pakistan when if it's for democracy? Why isn't he capturing General Munir? Because General Munir is showing him rare earth minerals. And this guy is supplying oil to China.
That's right, and it clearly goes on to show that America wants to send a message not to Venezuela or to Maduro, but to China and Russia, who have expanded their footprints across the nation. And this is something that will continue to develop, and all eyes will be on that press conference, Karthikeya, by Donald Trump.
Absolutely, absolutely.
With that, viewers, it's a wrap on this edition of The Bulletin. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for that explosive news conference by US President Donald Trump.